Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to ReZOO, the Zoo Review podcast. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined by an extra special guest co-host, the one and only Connor Davies. Say hello, Connor.
Hi, everyone.
Presented by Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast, this sister show promises to explore, appreciate, and highlight the fantastic conservation work of zoos from around the world, while also offering a perspective on the visitor experience.
Today we are talking all about Tucson's Reid Park Zoo, a brilliant zoo which takes you from the middle of the USA all the way to Tanzania before dropping you right in the heart of a South American forest.
Yes, and it is. What an incredible journey it is. It's so much fun. As always, we will be chatting all about the zoo, the amazing animals that live there, the amazing experiences that you can do, the conservation work that goes on, and just generally our thoughts, our feelings. It's a great time. Loved it, to spoil too much. But before I spoil too much, without further ado, let's get started. And welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining me once again for another fabulous episode of ReZOO, where we are once again returning to the wonderful state of Arizona in the USA for our... I came up with a horrible pun since the last time.
Oh,
with
no.
the next in our series of ReZOOs of the United States of America. I've been sitting on that. Me and Connor have been chatting before this, and I've been sitting on that pun for 2 hours, and I think I'm very proud of it. It's good, isn't it?
It's very good. I act appalled, but I'm really proud, quite frankly.
Moving on very quickly. The next ReZOO of our trip to the United States of America, which last time, of course, we talked about the brilliant Phoenix Zoo, and today we're talking about a bit of a smaller collection found in Tucson, which is the Reid Park Zoo. For context, for anyone who this might be their first episode or tuned in, maybe missed the last one, whatever it is, last year I went to the wonderful state of Arizona to go to the North American Association for Environmental Education conference. And while I was there, of course, I took in some of the national parks and some of the wildlife, and of course, the wonderful, wonderful zoos. And while I was in Tucson, there was no excuse not to go to the zoo, which is based in Tucson. I went, I had a brilliant time. I then met some amazing staff members at the conference. So that was nice because I could then ask them all about the zoo. And it was just like a really, really good time. And so I'm so excited to finally get to talk about it after all this time. It's going to be so much fun. But before we do that, as I said, this is not Jodie. Jodie is usually here. We are joined by an extra special guest host who's joining us for our American episodes, Connor. Connor, would you like to introduce yourself briefly? We did a bit of a longer one last time, but a nice introduction for anyone who missed that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Connor. I work in education at Bristol Zoo Project, down here based in Bristol in the UK. And I am equally a bit of a big zoo nerd like you, like walking around, going to all the zoos in the UK. I've not quite made it over to the US yet, but one day. And I'm also co-host with my fiance of Planty Planty Zuzu, another slightly different zoo-based podcast where we add different animals or plants to a hypothetical zoo/botanic garden. So that's you can go check that out.
Yes. And we'll, of course, do a big long plug for that at the end
Of
to give you all of the links and everything to go and check that out. And it's yes. And for anyone, since we recorded the last one a couple months ago, so it's not that in the last week or whatever, since the last episode of this has aired, Connor has all of a sudden become engaged and Bristol Zoo has changed its name and all of these things have happened in a very intense week. We recorded the Phoenix Zoo episode a good few months ago. And so, yes, it's not been an extreme week for Connor changing jobs and becoming engaged. But no, so excited to have you back, to be here, to be talking about it. And yes, as you said, never been over to the States, to Arizona. So it's one of those ones where, a bit like we did for Loch Lomond Aquarium with Jodie, like where I had been and she hadn't, like we just are going to. I'm going to chat about it. Connor's going to ask me all the questions that everybody at home will probably be going, oh, what about this? Instead of just letting me ramble for an hour. And yes, I'm very, very, very excited. And yeah, I guess to get us started, usually we do our first impressions. And so my first impression, I suppose, was walking up. Uh, it was hot, but I was grateful that I was at Reid Park Zoo because the first day that I'd been and gone to zoos in Arizona, I'd gone to Phoenix Zoo, been outside all day, sweated buckets. Scottish people are not meant to be in the hot, hot desert sun that long. Reid Park Zoo, I was grateful to be at because I knew going in it was smaller. It looked like it had lots of trees that I could hide under, and like it just gave a very nice, welcoming atmosphere and vibe. And like I walked up to the gates and I'd kind of been in communication with them beforehand, being like, oh, I'm coming along. I work at a zoo in Scotland. Like, it'd be great to like chat to people while I'm there. And yeah, so the first impression was great because the person who I'd been emailing happened to be standing there and was like, oh, Jack, it was great. And nice to meet you. Like, and all these things. So my first impression was fantastic of Reid Park Zoo. Do you have any questions, I guess, of the entrance, Connor? I know you probably Connor, I feel like, and I can talk about every minute detail of a zoo, so I'm sure there will be questions, but handing the mic over.
No, to be honest with you, I think I guess I have very only briefly looked at Reid Park Zoo. It's not a zoo I'd ever
Mhm.
heard of before, to be honest with you. I think from what I could see and what you said, it was a little bit of a smaller zoo, so it's not kind of one of
Mhm.
the major US collections. But am I right in saying have they just built a new entrance by the time you got there as part of their upgrades, or had that not opened when you went?
So yeah, so everything kind of felt very, very new and fresh, and like this is something we'll kind of talk about throughout, I guess, and like looking forward at the end, there's kind of a master plan that we might discuss a little bit, but like the zoo is undergoing a major kind of redevelopment, which is really, really exciting, and I think especially for like we call it a small zoo because in comparison to things like Phoenix Zoo, it is small.
Mhm.
And like in terms of like the walking you have to do, it was much less intense and stuff. But it still had like all sorts of big hitter animals that you're excited to see, like lions, elephants, rhinos, jaguars, tapirs. Like it still had all those big hitters, but also it has this development plan which is kind of pushing it even more forward. So yeah, I've wandered away from the question, but yes, it felt very new and fresh, and it felt like an exciting place to be. I feel like I brought it back there. Yes. So no, yeah, you kind of once you go through this kind of beautiful entranceway into the zoo, it's kind of split up in an interesting way. It's kind of like it's done in loops. So there's two major loops at the moment, with the third being developed. And so you have this kind of African loop and this South American loop that you can go around. And so, of course, you kind of, which I always like. I think it's nice to have this kind of like themage, and you can put animals in like mixed species habitats and stuff. So I was already kind of sold on that. Um, and yeah, they just opened, speaking of new developments, they just opened a new area called Expedition Tanzania. I think had been open for a little while, but it was like their new big thing, and that was very exciting as well. So yeah, first impressions, and in terms of like my organizational mind of like, I was very excited. I was very, very excited. But yes, I guess like I don't know where should we start. I've lost my notes already. There we go.
I
Um,
I really like this idea of like loops. I
mhm,
don't know. It seems like quite an American thing. 'Cause I look at like quite a lot of American zoo maps and stuff. They tend to have these loops that are like these kind of almost
mhm,
separated experiences. Whereas you get a lot of the theming in UK zoos, but they tend to all just be smushed together and it's like one
mhm.
long thing that you always walk around. Whereas
Yeah.
loops seem like a nice way to kind of pass up the experience and
Mhm. I
um,
wonder if it's like, so you know how like a lot of American cities are built on grids because they're not
yeah.
as old as UK cities or European cities or whatever, where you have all these little back alleys and stuff. I don't know whether it's like that might be some kind of strange, some history of architecture student or professor somewhere is listening, going, "Oh God!" But maybe it is perhaps something to do with like the fact that like a lot of these cities are newer, so they're not stuck to like set city
Yeah.
plans and set old design features. I don't know, but like no, the idea of loops is something I really like. And like when we talked about Chester Zoo, me and Jody, that was something we really celebrated because we like this idea of like feeling like you're going around and seeing like for example, the islands area that they have
Yeah.
there, everything works together, everything matches together, and it's nice. And I think when we talked about Phoenix Zoo last time, they have a similar thing where it's like Africa, they have like kind of jungly areas, they have this different loops in Arizona Trail, and like it all works. And I don't know, yeah, maybe it is an American thing, but it's a good thing. It's a thing that I
Yeah.
love.
You could probably
Yeah.
do with a bit more of it because the amount of times you go to a UK zoo and then it's like an absolute rabbit run and you can never work out your way around and you like, hang on, what have I seen? What haven't I?
Hmm. Yeah, it's like yeah, I and I end up traipsing my poor family or friends, whoever's come with me. Like, nope, nope, we're going down every back corridor. We're going down here. We're going here. We're ended up wandering into staff areas because we're not meant to go that way. But like American zoos, not a problem because it's
Mm.
so well organized. So yeah, big bonus to start with. And I think what was nice is like when you have these themed loops, like it makes it really easy for us to talk about because you're going from things, for example, the first animal you see is an African wild dog, into like lemurs, into tortoises, into like rhinos and stuff. And it all just kind of flows. And like as an educator as well, I think it works really well. And like, yeah, I just love it. I just really love it. But yes, anyway, on to the first thing. That was African wild dogs. We have talked about them a lot on the podcast recently because we've just had our Africa series come out and they are a charismatic, interesting, amazing thing. And the space for them was really fantastic. And what I liked about Reid Park Zoo was because it is small and it's organized in very easy loops to navigate. Um, they weren't out the first time I wandered past, but by the end of the day, I could kind of go around this little loop knowing, oh, I want to see the African animals again. And they were all out running around having a great time. And it was really nice. It had like a good kind of water running through it. It had a good amount of space for them to kind of run or disappear. It had good glass viewing areas. And I think what was really nice is it had, because they knew like it's going to be hot, it's Arizona, it's going to be hot. They had excellent kind of shaded viewing areas as well. And also kind of the glass, I don't think there was a single thing throughout where there was like sun reflections on the glass that made things difficult to see. It all worked really, really well. And like those are compliments I'm going to give now and just copy and paste them to everything we go through, in that like it just worked well. So yes, you kind of start with these African wild dogs and they're fantastic and I love them. Yeah, did you have questions about African wild dogs?
No, to be fair, I think African wild dogs to me, they're one of those. They're a big hitter that always hits. I've never been somewhere
Hmm.
where there's African dogs and been disappointed. I
Yeah.
think they are, on the surface of it, they're not an animal you expect from zoos. They're not something that goes, oh, let's go to the zoo. I want to go see the African painted dogs. But they
Hmm.
are fantastic wherever you go.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like everybody loves dogs. Everybody loves dogs, and these are dogs that just look like they've been graffitied in a really cool way. So like you can't not like them. Um,
There is something
and
really endearing about them. They're really charismatic to watch and to kind of interact.
yeah,
How many did they have? Did they have a big
it,
group or?
I don't remember it being huge. It wasn't like a sea of dogs just like
Yeah.
everywhere, but it was big enough that you got that like fun interaction and like seeing the group dynamics play out a little bit of like these kind of yapping and jumping and pushing and this I'm going this way and I'm going that way and well I don't like it when you go this way, kind of like dynamics that you get with these sorts of things. And it was nice. It was a good start. And I think yeah, something that like like yeah, always a hitter. And I think of it every time we talk about them, I'm like love them. And they never have much else to say apart from the fact they're really really cool. And actually in a recent episode of Pangolin, just to plug my own show, if you go back, an episode with Roby Watkinson, um, I played a clip of the dogs that I saw when I was in South Africa running alongside a van that I was in. And like, go and listen to that episode and that clip because it's incredible to hear the way they communicate with each other. That's the thing I love most is that like you can tell almost like conversation is happening, and it's fascinating when you hear these like little yaps. It's just amazing and I love it. So go and listen to that. Shameless plug of my own show. Don't talk about your show too much, Connor. I'm just going to plug my own here. And yeah, so that was amazing. And then yeah, it was followed up by ruffed lemurs. They were white ruffed lemurs, I believe. Which I always think is interesting because I feel like more common in the UK. It's same as like the Siamang, that I still don't know whether I'm saying it right or not. All these months later of recording, like it was the same thing as them. Where like I feel like in the UK you see buff cheek gibbons or you see lar gibbons. You don't necessarily see siamangs or seamangs, whatever they are, everywhere. White ruffed lemurs, I think, are less common in the UK than red ruffed lemurs. We seem to have red ruffed lemurs everywhere. Any zoo with lemurs seems to have red ruffed lemurs. And as long-time listeners will know, I was once bitten by a red ruffed lemur, and so I have a vendetta against them. So it was lovely to see a white ruffed lemur that was a bit different to perhaps what I was used to. Do you have vendettas against lemurs, Connor?
I only ringtails because they're. I feel like we've mentioned this before, at least me and you, if not on the podcast. But ringtailed lemurs, I adore them. You know, they're great. They're a good poster child for conservation. They're the stereotypical lemur, but they're just
Mhm.
bloody everywhere. Let another lemur have the limelight. You know, it's
Yeah.
just like, come on. They're not even the most endangered. Maybe you can take a step back and let all those other lemurs have a bit of a spotlight for just for once. You know, you've got King
Yeah.
Julian on the thing. You've got your big characters in pop culture that highlight the ring-tailed lemurs. Let some
Yeah.
of the little guys have a go.
Yes, especially when you remember there are so many hundreds of different species of lemur, and
Yeah,
it's just like,
absolutely.
yeah, go on, just let
And
like a
like,
weird like one, yeah,
especially when you think of it, because there's something like, I swear that there's like double the number of ring-tailed lemurs in captivity around the world than there is out in or like in Europe. I think there's about 4,000 lemurs in Europe, and there's about 2,000 out in the wild of ring-tailed lemurs. Like something
that's
daft like that.
insane. That is mad, actually. And actually, when you think about it, it is, and we're looping back to an important conservation point, which is zoos are important for that exact reason, but also illegal wildlife trade, pet trade. There will probably be, if there are 4,000 in captivity in zoos, an equal number, or and this is a full guesstimate. There will be a large number. I'll not say an equal because I don't know an exact number, but there will be a large number that have been taken from the wild or bred into illegal things, because things like primates, with lemurs and small monkeys and um, all sorts of like interesting. Like we talked about cats, like recently, like small, like they're not primates but still like small, like predatory cats, like all of these things get taken and sold or taken and whatever. And so yes, lemurs important to highlight. I feel like that we got to a conservation point there, but also, yeah, give the other lemurs, like the white ruffed lemurs,
Yeah,
a
this is the thing. There's,
chance.
there's such a vast diversity in just that family of animals.
Mhm. Have you looked
That's
down the list of species that we are going to discuss later on?
yes.
Just to preview someone else that might be coming up, the ring-tailed lemurs do feature, but
Yeah.
it's okay. We'll come back to them. No, but it was another really interesting, wonderful habitat. And it's kind of like, again, built into this kind of like rocky, kind of like cavey thing where you can dip in out of the sun and stuff, which was really, really nice. Before you come out into what I guess what I would classify as kind of like an African savanna-y area, where you have, well, actually, before you get to that, there's also opposite these guys an American alligator, which isn't, funnily enough, given the name, not African, but it's nice to see a touch of American species there. There's them, and there are also bears further on that are also American. We'll get to the bears in a second because they have an interesting story. But yeah, there's also an alligator here. Great to see. Love it. It was sat like under the water looking spooky the whole time, as alligators do. Was great. It's kind of my thoughts on the alligator. But
I,
then you get
I
onto the
feel like
rest
you
of
shouldn't be able to go to a zoo in America and not see an alligator. I feel like that's just
the,
so emblematic.
yes, exactly, exactly. They are just like,
Yeah.
this is the thing. One of my friends from work the other day, he's moving to um where is it? It's a state that's nowhere near Florida or anywhere there would be alligators. And he was like, "Do you know what wildlife there is in sort of the Midwest of America?" And I was like, and the only two animals that come to my head, and I don't know why, or the three, are hummingbirds, which I don't think you find there, uh, bears, which maybe you get there, and alligators. So we're really covering mammals, birds, reptiles, but also nothing helpful to him at all that I could offer. So if anyone out there is listening and wants to talk more about the wildlife of America, please contact me because I'd love to do it. But yeah, so it was nice to see iconic American animal featured. Um, before we nip back into, of course, the classic kind of African wildlife, and it's kind of a plains area where you have things like zebra, ostrich, giraffe. There was, and I think it's speaks or specs gazelle, which were shockingly, when you have ostrich, rhino, and zebra, which are all iconic, wonderful animals. The gazelle, I think, was actually my favorite because I think, again, in UK zoos, you see a very select group of animals in terms of like when you think of like deer or antelope, that's the word, and you don't necessarily see gazelle in that many places. And so it was really interesting to see these beautiful, dainty, like little things that just like they look almost like, you know, when you see a ballerina walking on its like on their tiptoes, and you're kind of like, how are you doing that? They have these beautiful slender legs that kind of come down to a point. Well, the gazelle is like that, where you're like
Yeah.
these kind of legs that kind of come down to a point, and you're like, I don't know how you're balancing and still moving so gracefully. But it was an incredible, like, I loved that space. I think it was really great, and it was a good mix of things. There was a rhino, always a crowd pleaser. We all love a rhino. And yeah, I think like this was a really kind of great kind of area that kind of ran up one side of the zoo, with all of these different kind of plains animals. I don't know. Do you have any particular thoughts on any of these? Because I think they're all icons, so I expect you to have thoughts on at least one or two of them.
No, I love a mixed species enclosure, especially if you
Yeah.
was a rhino in the mixed species as well.
So the rhino was in. So I think these kind of they were split almost in two. I think, and it was kind of like this. Like there was the rhino was in with the gazelle, and then you had the zebra and the ostrich. But they were both mixed species. They were just kind of separate. They kind of looked like they could be one entity, but were kind of like, yeah, separate.
Nice. No,
Yeah.
I love the integrate because so many places you go to and try to see mixed species exhibits, and the rhinos are always like kind of there but kind of not, and they're adjacent to but not involved.
Yeah.
And because I guess it takes a little bit of work to get it right because rhinos can be like an aggressive species. They're much bigger than
Mhm.
some of the animals they share with. You might be kind of recipe for disaster, but actually it's so nice to see them in a proper mixed species exhibit because it just makes the kind of enclosure that more dynamic and a lot more kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, especially because yeah, well, it's that's one of those ones. If a rhino can exist with a gazelle in the wild, it can definitely do it here. And
Yeah,
like it's like yeah, I think there is just that like I guess I don't know whether it's like nervousness sometimes when you've got a big thing that could easily squash a gazelle if it really like if something but like they're not gonna like it's not gonna like it's the gazelle is always going to outrun that rhino.
yeah,
Nothing's going to happen. And it was nice to see them kind of integrated in this way. Um, and yeah, and the space was really yeah. I always love mixed species, and I think it's something we praise every time we see it because it is. It's like it's not always like this isn't meant to be shady or sound shady or like rude, but like it's not always that creative a mix. But
mm,
it always feels special when you see a mix when it's like there's sometimes things really stand out. For example, like at Chester where they had the sun bears and the binturong. That always stood out to me because I was like, I've never ever seen that before. But also, like when it's less kind of out there, when it is like rhinos and gazelle, it's still exciting to see and it's still nice to see. So it doesn't have to be like a crazy out there thing. Like it's not that creative to put Africans, plains, animals all together, but it just shows these things as a unit. And especially, I guess, as an educator, it's quite nice to show like different species which different fulfill different needs within a space in a space together in a zoo as well. So
yeah,
like,
absolutely. When you go somewhere and you've got all those species that could easily
mhm,
be in their kind of combined area together, but they're all next to each other in separate enclosures. It's just
yeah.
it always looks like a missed opportunity, and it always looks a little bit jarring
Mhm.
because you're like, why are you keeping all of these separate when you could easily just knock it all together and have this
Mhm.
amazing kind of mixed species experience?
Yeah, and it's yeah, I don't know. That's and it's something that I guess like stood out at Phoenix Zoo as well with like the big mixed species, and I just yeah, I don't know, I just loved it, and I thought it was really nice, and like yeah, especially when it's this hot, I'm just like I feel like I am in an
Yeah,
African savanna
actually
ecosystem.
immersion.
And so no, it was like really, really, yeah, it was really, really interesting. I really, really liked it. Really, really liked it. And again, that's the benefit of doing loops and themed areas is you can do these mixed species things and they feel like they fit. And even when actually this is something that like I really appreciate about the loop is that even when it was kind of like the animals weren't mixed, it felt like they were still existed within the same space. So as I said with like the giraffe and the ostrich and stuff, they weren't necessarily they didn't have to be in with the rhino, but it felt because of the way that the path was laid out and the way that you kind of walked, it felt like they were one unit. It was
Yeah,
really, really clever. And like, so like this path kind of like raised and kind of wove throughout these things. And then like, for example, opposite the rhino and the gazelle was the giraffes. And so the giraffes had no access at all to the rhino, but all that was between them was this like one pathway. And so when you're looking in one direction, it kind of tricks the mind into thinking all of this is happening in one space and all of it feels more immersive, which is really, really nice. And I really, really like it. Like I'm trying to think of other examples. Like so for Edinburgh Zoo, for example, I really enjoy like the perspective of like being there's a part of like the hill where you're kind of looking like down the giraffe kind of space and you can see geladas below, and I kind of like that where it's like your mind is kind of tricked into thinking they're in the same kind of space, but they're not. They're just kind of existing together, but they could be this kind of like weird like different universe where they're like that. Like yeah, I just like it. I just like when spaces make sense, and this made sense and it was great. um but yeah, yeah, I guess any more thoughts on mixed species or things, or can I talk about giraffes and how amazing they are?
no, go for it.
But
I'll never stop you talking about giraffes, Jack.
I love giraffes. I love giraffes. And this was the first time ever in my life that I got to feed a giraffe. And I walked. It was when I walked in. The person who had been emailing was like, "Oh, is there still space on the giraffe experience?" To the person behind the desk, um, and they were like, "Yeah, yeah, like, why, yeah, like," and they gave me this little token, and up I got to go, like, and just feed this giraffe completely unexpectedly. Like, such a nice thing for them to have done. I'm extremely grateful because giraffes have always been like one of my favorite animals. Like, I just think that like I know this is a show for appreciating underappreciated species, whatever. Yes, that's fine. But also giraffes. They're just like graceful. They're beautiful. They are more endangered than elephants. So people don't know that. So there you go. They are underappreciated. They change all the time in terms of like, not all the time. They have changed recently in terms of the number of different types of giraffe there are. There's always interesting things going on with giraffes because of the work of the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, who I should shout out because they are amazing. So I've always loved them and I've always found them fascinating. But despite the fact I work at Edinburgh Zoo where there are giraffes, despite the fact that like Blair Drummond Safari Park is not that far away from me that has giraffes, despite the fact I've been to Chester and all of these other Whipsnade and all of these amazing places that have giraffes, I've never had that moment of like connection. And I actually think when I think back, like in terms of like animal experiences, like zookeeper for the day things that you get or whatever, my experiences with those are so limited. Like for somebody who works in a zoo, the only things that I can actually remember feeding, like by hand, are rhinos, which happened this year. Before one of the rhinos left Edinburgh Zoo, I begged and begged and begged, and then I was allowed to go and do that. And giraffes, and that's pretty much it. Like I've been behind the scenes and I've seen things, so for me, like finally being allowed to feed a giraffe was like this dream come true moment of like whenever you have those moments with an animal that you've like loved and appreciated and adored for like years, you just feel this like special connection. And like you could see it in the eyes of like everyone from like 5-year-old kids there to the grandmothers who had been like pushing them around in the buggy or whatever. Everybody who was having that experience felt like they were having a moment. And even somebody who spends all of their time talking about conservation or thinking about animals or thinking about whatever, like I felt like re-inspired and like I just like loved it. I couldn't believe that I was being allowed to do it. It felt weird. Have you ever fed a giraffe, Connor?
Yeah, I've fed them at a few different places. I've been lucky enough to be allowed to do it in a couple of different places, and it is. I think it's. especially when you're doing it, because I've done it from up high and I've done it from
Hmm.
kind of ground level as well, and it's no matter where you are, that sense of scale is
Yeah.
incredible because you
Hmm.
are so aware when you're actually, holding out that branch or that bucket
Hmm.
or whatever, however you're feeding them. It is the power and the strength that that
Yeah.
animal holds. It just becomes abundantly clear,
Hmm.
and it's
Hmm.
vaguely terrifying. Whenever if you're at ground level, it's horrifying because you're like, oh my, this giraffe could lift me up and just take me away, and that's
Yeah.
completely out of my control.
Hmm.
Um,
It's like the gazelle where they have these like spindly legs. So you're like, it can't be that strong. And then you see it and you're like up close and you're like, oh, you're very tall. You
yeah, and
are like, hmm.
which is another amazing thing because they're these like horrendously big animals, and there's so much power, but they're so gentle as well, and you can't.
Hmm.
Everyone at work when I'm talking about the giraffes goes, "Oh, they're really relaxing to watch. It's quite like mindful and therapeutic watching them." And you go, "Yeah, but they can run 30 miles per hour and they kick and kill a
Hmm.
lion." So in amongst all of that, like appreciation of how gentle and beautiful they are,
Hmm.
there's an appreciation of actually that's a really powerful animal too.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it gave you a nasty kick, it could be a very, very dangerous. That yeah, like
Yeah.
you just. I guess that's the thing, though. I think it's something that you always have to be aware of, especially like when you work in zoos. You become desensitized almost to some of these things of like,
Mhm.
oh, like it's just a giraffe. They're so like, oh, we see them every day. But yeah, like if you're in the savannah and someone coming towards you, maybe turn around and run. But yes, it's like, yeah. But having said that, in the moment, in the experience, all you could see was this gentle giant, and like it's just yeah, the best. And like, did you notice when you were feeding them, like mine got very, very friendly, very fast, and got lip on hand action. Um, did you like it? Feels. Have you had a giraffe's lips or tongue touch your hand?
Yeah.
Weird,
Yeah.
weird, and I can't really describe it, but like it's just weird. It's like because it's not like I can't even compare it to like if you fed a horse or if you fed like I don't even know, like a more common animal in like my growing up experience that might be more domesticated, like a dog or a cat or a horse or whatever it is. It doesn't feel like that. It's like rough, but like still gooey, but like it's weird and it's but still kind of fun and like ooh, look at this. This feels strange. Yeah, and like oh, just loved it. And I'm so grateful because I think it's like I don't know, it just goes to show the power of these moments for people that like you can just feel re-inspired and reinvigorated even when you're going to an environmental conference for 3 days. Have like you can still be amazed by animals, even though you are kind of converted already. But no, it was amazing. It was amazing, amazing, amazing. Um, and
How
yeah,
did you, so were you at head level when you did that, or did you do it from the ground?
yes,
How was it set up?
it was head level. So you went out like so they had like a queue kind of system, and then you went out on this little platform, and it was very much like if they come over, that's great. If they
Yeah.
don't come over, sorry, like that's that. But luckily they came over, and it's yeah, when you're kind of head to head, looking in the eyes of this thing, you realize like, wow, that is a big head. Like that is a because
Yeah.
even from the ground, you look up and you think that is a tall animal, but you're kind of looking up, so it looks like it's getting smaller. Whereas when you're at head height, you're like that like. And it's not something you appreciate until you're like within touching distance that you're like, that animal is huge. Like it's bizarre and it's like something that like I've always had problem with scale like in terms of like when I saw a whale for the first time I was like that is the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life and like when you see something on a TV show or in a documentary like you just don't quite get the scale and even when you see
Yeah.
something in real life from a distance you don't quite get it until you're like there and you're going now I can see when they bang their heads off each other that's why it makes the loud thudding noise like
Yeah.
that's why like yeah yeah. Um, and like, yeah, that's why I'm glad I'm on this side of a barrier, not right there. Like, because yeah. And like that's the thing with these big animals. Like I remember when I fed a rhino, it was like, if it comes to you, that's great, but don't kind of chase it and put your hand between like a bar and its head because it won't mean to. But if it moves its head and squashes your hand against that bar, it will squash it. Like because it is big and it's powerful, and you got that vibe with the giraffes of like they wouldn't mean to do anything, but wow, you're huge and powerful. Like that was the vibe. It was just
Yeah,
great.
I
It
think
was
that's
just
my
great.
thing. The big animal I think of, if I could feed anything that I've not fed before, my big one would be rhino, because again, that kind of thing, that huge animal that I've not had that kind of connection with, they
Hmm.
must just be absolutely incredible.
Hmm. I had forgotten that like when you came to Edinburgh Zoo, you were begging me to be like, "Can you try and get me to feed a rhino? Can you try and get me to feed a rhino?" And I was like,
Honestly,
"No."
any
And
zoo I
then
go to, wherever I know anyone that works there, I'm just like, rhino feed, please, and it's not happened for me yet. So
one day your dreams will come true. The only reason I got to do it is because, like, I'll tell this story here. I feel like I haven't told it anywhere. The only reason I got to feed a rhino at Edinburgh Zoo was because I like basically like explained to somebody who I know who worked there. I was like, the first day I came here before the zoo had opened, like I was so nervous for my first day because this was like dream job growing up of like working in zoo, working in Edinburgh Zoo. Like this is the zoo I grew up in. Like the first animals, because they live near the education centre at Edinburgh, the first animals that came up to me, like it was like 9 a.m. It was peaceful, it was quiet. And obviously they kind of sensed someone was there and they both came up, Sanjay and Kabir, and put their heads like on this bar and were like, who is that? And it was like this nice like moment like of connection with them. So when Sanjay was leaving to go to Berlin Zoo to be part of a breeding program, I kind of had this moment where I was like, Elise, Elise, you know how I've been annoying you for like a year and a half to be like, can I feed a rhino? And she was like, yes. I'm like, I'm cashing in that favor now. And she said, I don't know if you can do that, like just cash in favors that I haven't agreed to. Like, well, like, can we just do it? Can we? And so, yeah, it was just like incredible. And like, yeah, I feel like she probably regret. Thank you so much, Elise, if you're listening. You made a small child in an adult's body's dream come true. Um, but also, I feel like she probably regrets every second of saying yes because now I'm like, Elise, she's like, yes. I'm like, can I feed a panda? And she's like, I can't make any promises about anything anymore. I'm like, well, okay. But like, so no, but no, it was just amazing. And like, yes, I feel like we have talked about feeding giraffes for a very long time. So we should maybe move on. But just rest assured, listeners, it was fantastic. Um, you then had two or three kind of smaller exhibits. You had meerkats. We have talked about meerkats before. I got a lot of hate on Instagram recently because somebody asked me what the worst and I put up a ask me anything and somebody said what's the worst animal and I said meerkats, guys. I said it and I'm sorry. Like they like they
that is
just haven't
objective
convinced me.
truth. You are.
I love Timon. We all love Timon, but but the space at Reid Park was really good for them. It was really interesting, but I'm just never convinced. However, to be updated soon because Jodie, who works up there at Drummond Safari Park, is taking me to do a meerkat experience there to try and convert me. So stay tuned, listeners, because I might change my mind. Maybe, maybe one day I'll change my mind. Um, but for now, yes, there was meerkats, and then there were spotted-necked otters as well, which are an African species of otter, which were amazing. And we talked about on the last ReZOO about Phoenix, how there are very few of them around and about in zoos. And so I've now seen them in two of the collections in which they exist, even though they are very, very rare. And I'm sorry, Asian short-clawed otters, who I see everywhere. They're just so cute. And like I think what happened with Asian short-clawed otters was I didn't notice how many places they were until we started doing ReZOO. And then I realized they were everywhere in the UK. So again, like seeing these guys, I was like, amazing. These are similar but different. And that's
That's your triangle of animals that are everywhere. Your meerkats, your ring-tailed lemurs, and your Asian short-clawed otters. It's
honestly, and
like,
but they've subbed in a different type of otter, which made it special. And like, yeah, it was so good though. It was so good, and like, I like what was nice about these spaces was like they felt really authentically like habitats. You kind of look down into the otter space, and it felt nice. It felt kind of like they had lots of water. The animal like was just chewing away on some like food. It was very cute, and you could tell like these animals are like they really appeal to kids because they're small, they're fluffy, they kind of have the cute factor, and you could tell the kids were just eating it up, like they were like looking, loving every second of seeing them. Um, and yeah, they were just great. They were just great, and there was also in this area completing the trifecta, there was uh what's it called? Uh Ring-tailed lemur.
Big Lima.
So yes, which we have voiced our opinions on enough. It was still nice to see them. I do love lemurs as much as we mock them. I love lemurs, especially ringtails. They are very I do love them. But yes, it was nice to see a diversity of lemurs. It was nice to see them represented. Um, Within the space. I always think as well it's interesting, like the choice of like where lemurs get put in a zoo, because sometimes like, and it's an interesting way to divide it up, and it's probably too big of a question to tackle here, but like it's interesting because like there's often like an Africa area of a zoo that includes animals that are like found like giraffes, rhinos, whatever, even though they're found across multiple African countries. Not like Africa is not just a country. There are hundreds. There's not hundreds. There are lots of different countries within Africa,
Yeah.
and sometimes Madagascar is like zoos will have this like Africa zone and then a Madagascar zone separately, even though Madagascar is part of Africa. So it was interesting to see all of these things integrated into one space, but it worked quite well to see this kind of variation. And especially when you're kind of thinking about like diversity of a continent, it's amazing to see like mammals, and you kind of have like different types of mammals. You have kind of like all of these different things in one space. You have kind of like the things in the trees, you have the things in the water, you have the things that burrow, you have all these different variations to survive in one habitat. So it is, or one kind of continent, and how diverse it gets. Like to show that diversity in one space, I guess is what I'm getting at, is really interesting. And so yeah, I really liked seeing them. Despite the fact that we have been quite cruel to them in terms of our description. But no, they were really, really, really good. And then, yes, before we move on to the elephants, I feel like we should also cover, there was a little kind of, not little, there was a very nice lion space, which was there, African lions. And again, like it was nice, adds to the diversity, seeing one of the large predatory animals. We had the dogs, now we've got the cats. And yeah, it was interesting because I feel like here in the UK we see more Asiatic lions. Like African
Oh yeah.
lions, they are about, but there's more Asiatic lions, and you always forget just how much bigger African
Yeah.
lions are when you see them, and you go, "Oh, you're scary. You are like you are a proper big cat, like a big, big cat." And it's just yeah, amazing, amazing. Um, Thoughts on lions? Feelings?
I quite like a lion, but
Oh,
I feel again it's another weird one in that they are always like a big hitter, but considering they're such a big hitter, they don't do a lot because they're just a. I mean, I, I guess that's kind of the same for all the big cats, but like things like jaguars, I've always seen to be quite active, whereas your
mhm.
lions, they're always lay somewhere, and it's
Are they lying around?
hey.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're not sorry
No,
though.
no. The smirk on my face is like, yep, uh huh.
But yeah, so they're always really great to see, but it always you can walk past them 3 times in a day and they'll be in exactly the same spot.
Yeah.
So I was finding it interesting how they've got this kind of big hitter status because they've got this reputation of kind of on the documentaries you see them doing all this really interesting behaviour. Then you actually go and see them in a zoo and it's a cat
Chilling,
lay in the corner.
vibing. That's the thing though, with the documentary, they can pick. It's like Big Brother. When Big Brother used to be a
Yeah,
show, they could make a really action packed, hour long TV show because they had 24 hours of content to like with these people fighting with each other and really condense that into an hour. Lions are the same in documentaries. They have like there's a 24-hour a day there, but they condense it into like an intense like 15-minute segment for a TV show where
yeah,
you see them
exactly.
doing stuff,
And
and then
that's
you
the thing that you
realize,
always get when people come and they go, "It's a lion. Why is it just lying down there?" And you're like, "Because that's what they do for 20 hours a day."
yep,
It's just the things you watch on telly. Pick the most interesting of those hours.
yeah. And that's the thing is like if you watch it, like especially I love the like night cam footage where people documentary filmmakers and they have like the nighttime cameras and they're like it's like I love the behind the scenes bits where they're like, we didn't think there was much activity, and then we turned on the night vision, and it's like a lion like on the bonnet of the car, and they're like, oh my god, and like they're like, oh. So no, like I really like yeah. So lions, love them, even if they do spend a lot of time lying around. Um, really, really great. Really, really great. Um, and then yes, I guess like doing this route as the way we're describing it, you would then pass the kind of bears. But I feel like we should finish Africa and then come back to them
Hmm.
in a second, because you then get onto Expedition Tanzania, which is all about the elephants. It's a huge area that they've kind of developed, which has a huge kind of water barrier between you and the elephants. And it's just like, I've never seen such active, engaged, moving around, rolling in mud, chucking themselves in the water, spraying each other elephants in my life. Like, it was just incredible. And I sat on a rock there for like so long, so long, just watching them burning myself, because I'm like, I'm not meant to be in the sun, but like enjoying watching the like elephants just like having a great time and like being young and silly and fun and spraying themselves with things and doing whatever. And like, it was a really, really nice space. And it also had the best interpretation of all
I
time.
was about to say that wasn't your favourite bit about the elephant enclosure, was it? I
No.
know what your favourite bit was.
My favorite bit of the whole thing, and like, I don't care because that's my show. I'm going to tell you right now, this will be winning a ReZOO next year in terms of like interpretation. Don't care what Jodie says about interpretation or what awards should be given out to who. The best piece of interpretation I've ever seen in my entire life, I love it so much, was for some reason on the entrance, like on the toilet block, like there's this massive elephant's bum, right? And you're like, what is that? Why is that there? Well, you walk up to it, and if you smack it, um, the like it makes just like this cry of an elephant. So like you smack it, and it just yells, and it's like, I'll like insert an audio clip right here. That's the noise it makes, and it's great, and it changes, but it changes noise every time. Like, it's so good, and it's so simple, but it's so memorable, and I like love it, because there is also, of course, the signs that tell you all about elephants and elephant conservation, which is amazing, and what, yeah, brilliant, wonderful, great, fantastic. But this is what really sticks with you. I love it. And I'm like, why does everywhere with rhinos not have this? Why does everywhere with hippos not have this? Why does everywhere, like, with any animal that would make a hilarious noise if you give it a little tap on the bottom, like, why do they not have this? And like, it's just so silly and fun. And like, I just love it. And what I love even more, I'm sorry, I'll let you ask questions about it in a second, Connor, because I'm sure you have many. But what I love even more is I spoke to somebody who works at Reid Park Zoo at a conference after, and she was talking about the fact that like um actually the bum physics in terms of like what they make the bum out of is very important, because like it gets smacked all day long, so they have to really like make sure that the material is durable but not too hard that when you smack it you like break your hand. So it was like I was like, wow, the depth of this bottom is endless, and I loved it so much. I like, sorry, like it was just fantastic, and I thought it was brilliant, and like loved it. And it's one of like, of all the things that like I've ever seen in zoos, it's one that like will stick with me forever, and I just think it's incredible.
This is the thing, people spend so long thinking about, interpretation and how to get all these different signs to be informative but also engaging.
Hmm.
When actually, and I know that the kind of physics and the thought behind it is going to be quite intense, but actually, on the surface of it, which is quite a simple idea, you've got a big round bum that looks satisfying to smack. Every time you smack it, it gives you a different noise, which tells you in itself about the range of vocal communication between elephants. It's
Hmm.
so simple and so effective. The
Yep.
amount of times I rewatched that video that you sent me when you found that bit of inter, because
Love it.
it's just so good. And yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic, and I think it's well worthy of a ReZOO next year because it is brilliant.
And like, spoilers for an upcoming review that we did about Prague. Like, there's like where they had a popcorn shop called Binturong Popcorn, which, if you know anything about Binturongs, it's that they stink of popcorn for a kind of gross reason, but we don't have to go into that. But they smell of popcorn, and so like it goes in the category of that where like this is interpretation that every zoo should steal.
Mm.
Like I don't care where you are in the world. So good, so
It's
good.
almost like education by stealth, isn't it? It's
Hmm.
showing you, making you do something fun, and sneaking a bit of a message in there, sneaking some education in there without you almost knowing it. But
Yeah.
it's that sticks because you remember the fun.
Hmm. Hmm. Like, and that's the thing. At the end of the day, zoos and museums and botanic gardens and all of these places that are designed to teach people about the natural world, they have to be at the end of the day fun. Like, especially if you're trying to appeal to like a mass market of like kids and teenagers and adults and all of these people, like it's really tricky. But people love fun and like things that are just silly. Like I feel like a lot of zoos struggle with getting like maybe like a youth, like they get like young kids, but they struggle with like a youth audience. But like that is so silly that like no matter what age you are, it appeals. And like even if you're like quite a serious person, it's just great. And like I just like on so many levels love that bottom. I just think it's so funny. I just think it's like just brilliant. Like just brilliant. I can't tell you any much more how much I love it. I just think it's fantastic. And like yeah, just brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Like great. Fantastic. And yeah, the elephants, though, also good. The live ones that you're not smacking their bottoms, also brilliant. Like the design of the space is really cool in that, like, there is kind of like it just feels like there's a little bit of water and then elephant. Like it doesn't feel like there's a wall between you. It doesn't feel like there's glass or bars or whatever it is. It's literally just like I'm here, and then there's an elephant there, and it's such like an interesting thing. And then alongside that, we haven't talked a lot about conservation projects throughout. There's a couple coming up that I wanted to touch on though. One of which being this kind of elephant project and how as part of like in 2014, as part of a species survival plan, the Reid Park Zoo was the first place in Arizona to ever have an elephant born, which is wonderful. And then also alongside that, they also support the Tarangire Elephant Project, which is located, funnily enough, in Tanzania, given the name of the kind of expedition Tanzania area that we're in. Um, and yeah, it kind of researches population numbers of elephants, the movements, the herd dynamics, and they've protected over 1 million acres of elephant habitat. So really, really interesting. Like, and I love it again, that link to the wild, that link to nature, that link to like not just we're here to have fun, but we're here to have fun and learn about something cool and want to protect it as well. And like, yeah, all of those links were happening, I think, very, very well. And you could see like all of these things come together through a bottom to education. Just perfect. Perfect. Any thoughts to add there? I feel like we've really gone into our bottom as much as we want to. Is something funny, Connor? Is something
Nothing,
funny about going into bottoms?
nothing at
I think
all.
it's really important that we go into depth into this bottom. It's really important. Oh, I wish you'd
It's
just keep it
amazing how
professional.
what percentage of this podcast will be taken up by talking about this one
Bottoms.
elephant bottom.
Mm.
It's quite impressive actually.
Yeah. Mm. It's an impressive bottom, so it deserves the time.
I'm familiar with that. I've got one of my own.
Oh, uh, moving swiftly on.
This is what happens when I record past 10 p.m. Jack. This is why my podcasts sound like they do.
I shouldn't have spent so much time congratulating you on your engagement. I knew this was a problem. I should have been a horrible person and said, no, we're going to start recording immediately. No small talk before this. No. Um, moving swiftly on. I think that we can kind of, when you leave Expedition Tanzania, you go past this bear space, which, of course, doesn't really sit within the Africa zone. It doesn't really sit within the kind of South America zone. But when you go into the website, I think it's really interesting because there's a whole section there about the bears and how the bears at Reid Park Zoo came to us because their mother was teaching them to rely on kind of sources of food that were too close to humans. So it's an interesting human wildlife conflict kind of story, I guess, about that. And so the kind of Reid Park Zoo, the US Fish and Wildlife Service, Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife and Parks, and the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, they all kind of, they kind of work together, and they have kind of brought these bears to Reid Park Zoo, where you kind of have less of that risk of human wildlife conflict, I suppose. And it's an interesting thing that crops up. All sorts of bears, things like polar bears, things like grizzly bears, brown bears, these things are types of animals which will come into contact with humans quite frequently, because they do. They look for rubbish, or they look for like sources of food that are easy to get to, and that just brings them into contact. So it's interesting to kind of hear this story of like how they came to be there. And I think while it doesn't fit within the loops, it's a really interesting kind of wildlife welfare story. And so I'm kind of like, even though it doesn't fit within the theme, it doesn't bother me, because I'm like, it's an important thing to have done, rather that than these poor bears end up in some kind of horrible human wildlife conflict scenario. And it then allows the people to learn, who come to the zoo, to learn about those things and learn about kind of collaborations, I suppose, not just about, I guess, like human wildlife conflict, but also about how collaborations and how many people go into conservation if it took collaboration of so many different groups to get it to happen. So I just think it's a really nice kind of story that kind of brings everything together. Do you have
Yeah,
thoughts on bears?
no, it's nice that the zoo kind of sacrificed their kind of geographic zoning, I guess, to have that, because it's.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only issue with these kind of these themed geographic loops and things, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to be really strict with that, then it does limit what kind of animals you can
Mm-hmm.
have. But actually, if you're happy to kind of play around that a little bit, it means you can tell these really exciting stories
Mm-hmm.
of these things that don't quite fit really linearly into your kind of
Mm-hmm.
your specific zones. But and I think bears are absolutely fantastic. I think, and I know we've to spoil the kind of South America section. I love zoos that have more than one bear as well, because just
Mm-hmm.
especially if you've got a bigger bear and a smaller bear and stuff, it again goes back to that kind of diversity of animals that we were talking about with the lemurs.
Mm-hmm.
A bit of the comparison, I think, is always really, really useful.
Yeah.
Um, just to kind of appreciate those different types a little bit more, and the different niches they might fit into and the different roles they might have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing. I think like bears, especially, like, I think people see big cats and see them as very different entities, and people see that,
Mm.
but like, I don't know if people see that with bears. And it's interesting to see, like, oh, there is a bear isn't just a bear. A bear is an Andean bear, or a grizzly bear, or a polar bear, or a panda, or like these things. And like, it's, yeah, I think it's nice to celebrate diversity in that way. And I think that's always a good thing. Like, I really appreciate when, like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, for example, when Chester has two different types of rhino, it's really interesting to be able to like think about like, oh, these are very similar, but they come from very different parts of the world. Or like, yeah, I just like to have that ability to go like, look how amazing evolution is, that these two things that are, if you were to really boil it down to it, quite similar, are so different. And so like, yeah, so
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. I think to most of the general public that are going to be visiting zoos, a rhino's a rhino, a bear's a bear. You know, it kind of on the surface, because people may not necessarily have that much of an appreciation of just how many different types of these different types of animals there are.
Hmm.
So to be able to point that out is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really really fascinating. It's really really nice. I really, yeah, really really liked it. Really really liked it. And yeah, and the space was really interesting for them as well, because you had this kind of like, it felt like almost you were going into their home, because it was like into a cave, which was quite fun. And they also had like a, how tall are you next to this bear? And you
Nice.
then suddenly realize, like the giraffes, I'm very small,
Yeah.
and that bear is very very big. So no, it was really really interesting, and like loved it, really loved it. And yeah, I then had lunch. I went and had lunch. So that was lovely. They have a nice kind of cafe area. Went in. As always, I ordered far too much food for myself. Had a lovely time. The standard kind of zoo offering of burgers and chicken and this thing and that thing, and all the kind of standard, what you would imagine from kind of a fast foodish kind of restaurant, but it tasted nice. It didn't taste like, it wasn't like fast food in the way that it was greasy and gross. It was just like the classics that you would imagine from a fast food chain, but delivered in a very nice way, which I'm always a fan of. Really liked. And then, yeah, then you kind of continued on. and at this point moved into the South America loop. Um, and yeah, well, actually, no, we'll go back before the South America loop. There is also their conservation education center, which I nipped into at this point, because you could go in as a member of the general public, which I thought was quite nice, because they had like lion-tail macaques, and then you also had a lot of smaller kind of tanks in there that had kind of things like bearded dragons and like that sort of stuff. Which,
Mhm.
when the zoo doesn't have a lot of larger kind of reptiles or like in terms of like it's like a mammal heavy, bird heavy environment. It's nice to have these smaller tanks where you can see the weirder other groups of animals that
Yeah.
exist. So that was quite nice as well. But yes, then you get into South America, and that's kind of the other major loop. And yeah, that features all sorts of incredible things. You kind of it opens with flamingos and gibbons. Then you get into like jaguars and squirrel monkeys and tapirs and all sorts of amazing South American animals. Um, and yeah, I guess like flamingos, always satisfying, beautiful pool, beautiful animals, squawking at each other, screaming at each other as they do, but lovely nonetheless. Gibbons, also always a satisfying, lovely animal to see. Like again, interesting, wonderful. And then again, we get to jaguars, which like came up at Phoenix Zoo as like an animal that we like love jaguars. Always love seeing a jaguar, so it was nice to have them here. I didn't actually see the jaguar when I was there, but it was nice to know it was a possibility. I think it was probably the one animal like going around that I didn't see. But I guess that's always a like. I always think that like as a zoo person, I'm never disappointed when I don't see an animal because I'm like, oh, it has somewhere to hide. That's a nice
Yeah.
thing. Like, which is a weird thing because I feel like if you, some people would be like, I paid for a ticket, I want to see everything. I'm like, well, sometimes it just wants to nap. So like it was quite nice to like have that space. Um and then yeah, we get onto squirrel monkeys. Always satisfying to see like these little monkeys crawling all over each other. And then the true star,
Hmm.
which is I feel like one of Connor's favorite animals, because you have it tattooed on you, so I feel like that is definitely true.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the tapir. They are Baird's tapirs. I mean, you weren't even there. What do you want to say about tapirs? I feel like you probably have a monologue prepared.
At any point, just ready to go. I think tapirs, they're just such an underdog. They are absolutely fantastic, and nobody knows what they are when they first see them, and so they are just this beautiful thing. I absolutely adore them. They are, you know, it's very like rarely that they actually make it on to somebody's favorite animals top 20, let alone
Yeah.
their number one position. And whenever I've met somebody else that is, as passionate about tapirs or loves tapirs, and especially at work
Mhm.
when um, a kid goes, "Oh, my favorite animal's tapirs," and I go, "They're my favorite." And I said, like everyone gets so excited just when you know what a tapir is because they're so used to going, "Oh, I love a tapir." I'm going, "Well, what's that? Hang on." But I
Yeah.
think, and I mean, I could be wrong, but I think they're getting there a little bit more. I think there's more awareness of them now than there certainly was when I was a kid. And so
Mhm.
I think people are kind of coming around to them a little bit more. But
Yes, I think so. I think
but
so.
yeah, but in the UK, I mean, lowland tapirs are my absolute favourite because those are the ones I volunteered with them before when I was volunteering at Bristol Zoo. Those are the ones I have a tattoo of. They were just
Mhm.
absolutely fantastic. Tia and George, mwah, perfect little tapirs. They were brilliant. And so those are your standard classics. And then there's a couple of zoos in the UK that have got Malayan tapirs, which are
Mhm.
your classic, but with a bit of a monochrome spin on it. Your black and your
Yeah.
white, kind of a bit of a checkerboard. But you never see any of the others. The other two or three species, depending on which scientist you talk to. Um,
Mhm.
but so I'm very incredibly jealous that you got to see Baird's tapirs.
Yeah. And they're one of those ones where like they're distinctly different, which is
Yeah,
like again, like we were chatting about rhinos and big cats and bears and all these things where you have like similar but very different in terms of like you look at its face and you go, that's not something I've like. you're a version of something I've seen before, but you're not the same. You're not the same at all, and it's kind of strange. And you're kind of like, oh, okay. It's like when they have like a different actor play Superman every 10 minutes. Like you're still wearing the same suit, but that face is different, and it feels different, and there's something going on here. It's a bit weird, but like I love it. Like it's interesting. Like okay, strange. Don't know how to deal with this, but I personally, Baird's tapir swooping in is one of my favorite tapirs. I won't rank them because I think that's cruel, but like I think like really interesting and like just very different. The space that they were in was also very interesting because like again, if they wanted to, they could disappear. They had this big pool, and like what was funny was like this when I saw them, they were kind of going in and out of this pool, and like once they got in that water, they sat very still, disappeared. Like there were so many people I saw walk past and just completely missed them because they were just so chilled, relaxing, disappearing, and just yeah, really wonderful little animals. Like really loved them, and yes, another conservation because I knew because Connor was here, I had to talk about conservation of tapirs. We have a whole episode about the conservation of tapirs with Patricia Medici. Go back and listen to that if you haven't already. Get another self promo. But Reid Park Zoo, they participate in the species survival plan for the Baird's tapir. And what I thought was really interesting when I was reading kind of back some of my notes and some of the stuff on the website was that by comparing the pictures that they take of kind of young tapirs that are born at the zoo with wild tapirs, researchers are kind of getting a better idea of how to estimate the age of the ones in the wild because they can look at these animals that have been born in captivity and kind of track, they know when that animal was born. So they can go, oh, when it is 10 days old, when it's 15 days old, when it's 20 days old, these are the changes in markings and this is how it develops. And they can then use that when they work on camera trap footage or whatever it is to look at kind of tapirs that have been born and gone, well, this one is probably this age or like this one is that age or whatever. And it's like a really nice kind of like use of research that takes place in zoos that makes a real impact on wild populations. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And yeah, can use that to kind of deal with health issues, all sorts of interesting things. And yes, what was the other thing? Oh, yes. So they also support researchers through the Baird's Tapir Project, which monitors Baird's tapirs in Nicaragua to learn about how they use their habitats and how best to protect it. So they consider them, and I thought this was interesting on their website, an umbrella species of like a charismatic one that people can like fall in love with, and then that will protect everything below it. And like I think that's really interesting, given what we said about or what you said about them not
Yeah.
being popular. Like it's interesting. And it's also interesting when you consider they're that for some people, like when I had Patricia on the show, she was talking about how like in some places people use tapir as an insult because they're seen as slow. So it's just
Mm.
interesting when you think about these different perceptions. And so
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. It's completely like yeah, different perceptions in different geographic regions and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just an interesting yeah, way of I don't know. I'm always gonna love them. So you can't use them as an
Mm.
insult around me. That's just not fair.
I
And
love
yeah.
that bit about the research as well because that's a really important point. But I think a lot of people think that the bigger thing that zoos do for conservation is breeding, but then you also have people that kind of go against zoos and go, well, actually, why are you breeding as endangered species if you're never going to be able to release them out into the wild and things like that for the multitude of reasons, mainly being that the wild doesn't actually exist and things like that. But actually, the so the main criticism always tends to be, oh, you're just breeding them to generate income for people coming in to come and see the babies. But actually, having the baby tapirs there, generating their own kind of conservation outcomes with that research they're generating,
Mhm.
just provides another kind of spoke to the wheel that is the conservation work zoos can do by breeding. It's
Mhm.
not just making more to bring in money that supports the conservation or by
Mhm.
boosting the populations if we ever need to do a re-release. It can also add to the numerous research projects that are going on within zoos.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I always think about this is actually like, feel like all organizations, like zoos, botanic gardens, museums, they should talk about that research side more, because I think sometimes people miss out on it, and it's like, no, these organizations that are there do incredibly interesting and important stuff behind the scenes in terms of like research and behavioral research, or research into like health, or interest into like life cycles. So like it's really really interesting. And I guess like one last point on conservation, which I think is really interesting, is it's to do with palm oil that they kind of talk about. And because I feel like when you talk about palm oil and how why it's important to kind of stop, um or like use sustainable palm oil or stop using palm oil, or whatever kind of side of that kind of conversation you land on, the poster child for that is orangutans. It's always orangutans. They always use orangutans for everything. They get slapped on everything as like, and yes, an important story. But sometimes I think people forget that there's other animals within that narrative. One of which is um, the tapir. And so by using kind of sustainable palm oil, or cutting palm oil down in your kind of the products that you use, like it has an impact not just on these big hitters like the orangutans, but also on your underrated, charismatic, wonderful faves, the tapir, as well. So remember that, guys. It's not just for the orangutans; it's also for my sweet, sweet tapir as well. But yes, I feel like we almost talked about that for as long as we talked about a bum. So that's quite good. Moving on, you
Oh, to
had,
be
of
fair,
course. Oh,
I, I'm now dreaming of a zoo that has a tapir bum that you can smack.
but
That
what noise? What
the,
noise?
the little like whistles it does. A little
Oh.
tapir whistle, because that is a noise that you will not expect to come out if you smack a tapir on the bum. I promise you. If you,
We do
if
not endorse smacking animals on the bum, just to make that abundantly clear. No, that's, yeah, interesting.
I I would love that. I might just commission that for like the wall of my house.
Yeah. Do you know what I've thought of? Another great animal noise, and it wouldn't be a bum smack, but it would be, it's similar in the vein of like tapir, I guess, in terms of like funny little animal noises. I
Hmm.
want one that does, you know, the noise that a hippo makes when it flaps its little ears. It's like that little
Yes.
like weird like wet flappy noise. That's kind of cute and charming and bizarre. That I want that, and I don't know how you would do it. Maybe you just like tickle it and then its ears go or something. I don't know. Tickling might become very complicated in terms of like dynamics. It's not
Yeah.
just an easy pat.
Maybe
But
you just have to make it the other end and bop it on the nose.
oh, and it could have little rubber ears that just flap. You know, someone would rip the ears off, but it would be great for the week it survived. Like it
Yeah.
would.
Ah, the general public.
We love you. Yes, and then moving on, there are Rhea, there are Galapagos tortoises, there are everybody's, the animal that is having a renaissance at the moment, everyone's star, the capybara, which I, do you understand the capybara renaissance? I don't know where it's come from, but I enjoy it. I think that's where I stand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's come from TikTok, hasn't it? I think it was.
Uh-oh, scary. A place I don't belong.
Yeah, I think that's where it came from, and I don't understand why it's happened now.
Hmm.
But also, again, I love a capybara. They are just an incredibly satisfying animal to me.
Yeah.
Like in the same vein as a tapir, they're an animal that is just solid and very chunky. They're an animal that when you poke them, you expect them to wobble, but it's like poking a brick wall,
Mm,
and that
interesting.
to me that's quite pleasing.
Yeah. Okay. That's, I mean, like, you know how there's like that thing for like they rank animal stings based on like one like thing. There should be a pokeability rating of like, just that you
Yes,
could put on signs to be like, just so you're aware, this animal looks squishy, but it's not. Because I feel like I'd love to know the squishiness of all animals.
I'd like that as a scale to measure things by.
Yes. I don't know what it would be. The Baker scale of squishiness. I would enjoy that. Like, I'm going to do that, make that my life goal. Um,
That's your legacy now.
Yeah, I don't know how you would do it in an ethical or interesting way. Like, but there's something in it. I'm going to
Yes,
scrap my PhD and work out how to ethically work out how squishy and cute animals
you'd
are.
have to standardize what you're poking it with, so you wouldn't be able to like do your finger.
Oh
You'd have to have like
yeah,
a poking device.
that measures squish, but also somehow is enjoyable for the animal. Otherwise, it's cruel and
Yeah,
shouldn't happen.
enriching.
Yes. Hmm. Maybe we have to get the animals to come to the thing that then measures their squishiness. This is a whole PhD. Someone needs to do this. I need to know squishiness of animals. Anyway, moving on. We're moving swiftly beyond that. There's aviaries in this section, which I loved. I always love a good aviary because I just love seeing birds flying about the place and just being crazy. I saw one of my favorite things, I think, in this aviary was a roseate spoonbill, which is a bright pink spoonbill. Loved it. But have you seen the often forgotten but iconically awful Jurassic Park 3,
I have, but not for a long time.
where there's the Spinosaurus?
Yes.
And you know the Spinosaurus and the T Rex get in a fight,
Yeah.
and they're like screaming at each other and like fight each other. I
Yeah.
saw a roseate spoonbill get into a fight with this kind of big, huge black bird. And it was like I have a photo where they're like leaning at each other and like screaming in each other's faces, and it reminds me so much of that scene in Jurassic Park where you're like, it's like a modern version where we've come so far in evolution that this is now the equivalent is two birds squawking at each other, but it's still kind of scary and cool.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I really loved it because like these two wading birds obviously both think they're like king of the hill. They're like, look at me, like I am absolutely the best thing to ever happen. I've got my fabulous pink feathers, I've got my fabulous black feathers. No one's gonna mess with me. And then they come across each other, and it's like, okay, let's see. Like, is the spoonbill or the other bird, which his name I can't remember off the top of my head now, takes it? But it was great. I love it. I thought it was so funny, and I just loved the space. Loved it. What are your thoughts on aviaries? I don't know if we've talked about it.
I love a well done aviary.
Uh huh.
I
Okay, what
think
does that?
it,
What comprises a well done aviary?
I don't know. In terms of displaying birds, I like aviaries over, wing clipping and pinioning and stuff. I
Hmm.
don't agree with that hugely. Um, and so big aviaries with plenty of space, because the biggest criticism that gets leveled against aviaries is that birds fly ages and so
Hmm.
small aviaries. So I think as long as you've got a big netted space for an aviary with your water sources, all your enrichment and everything, and yeah, preferably as kind of densely planted as possible,
Yeah.
according to their habitat, of course. You don't want to be putting like a plains bird in a rainforest, but as kind of realistic as you can, I think they can be really, really effective, especially for that kind of visitor journey, that immersion. Because
Yeah.
if you want to mimic a rainforest and make people feel like you're in a rainforest, get a load of songbirds in there and make the noises that you sit here in a rainforest. Because that's one of the kind of pivotal sensory experiences you get in that kind of
Yeah.
habitat. So they can be really effective for that, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'm getting really into birds recently. I absolutely love birds.
I saw pictures of you birding and was very like not taken aback, but I was like, this is not Connor in a zoo. Connor's always in a zoo. What is he doing? Like he's
I I've got so into birding that when I went birding, I wore all khaki. I
That's
know.
when you know.
I,
That's
I,
when you
I
know.
felt I felt like I'd fully assimilated at that point. I was like, okay, this is my identity now.
Well, we're gonna. Don't you worry. There will be a lot of birding chat in the next ReZOO because it is the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum in which a rare hummingbird had landed, and I've never seen so many birders. So we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that as a topic because I just find it a fascinating. I spend more time watching the birders than the birds,
Yeah.
honestly, because I think they're just so funny. They are like, like it's great that they have a passion, but also I find it really funny watching like just the interactions that happen because I think it's just kind of cute and charming, but also kind of funny. And like, I don't know, I just like love it. Love it. Anyway, we're not shaming them. Don't worry, guys. I have positive thoughts about them. It's not like I feel like I left it on a cliffhanger there. Like I'm going to absolutely roast birders on the next episode. Roast birders. No, that's not even a pun. That's close to a pun, but it's not even. Anyway, outside the aviary, there was anteaters. Love anteaters. Arno has been on the show twice from the Anteaters and Highways Project. Friend of the show, great guy, great project, amazing people work on it. Go and look it up if you haven't already. There are fabulous signs all about it at Reid Park Zoo. We love education to the visitors about armadillos. Not armadillos, anteaters, but there was also armadillo chat, as there always is when there is our anteaters around, because they also work on the giant armadillo project. But yeah, it was just great. Um, I loved it. I thought it was great. I always love anteaters. I think they're just big, dopey, wonderful things, and I love them. Do you have a particularly strong opinion of anteaters?
No, okay, they're another underdog. They're another animal that looks like they shouldn't exist. Like they've just had every part of them stretched in a different direction. They're
Mm-hmm.
magical.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. And then, yes, the last animal is the second of our bears, which is the Andean bear. And again, this is one of the spaces that I think has been newly developed, and it was big, it was nice. It had a big pool. It kind of was running around the place, just kind of chilling in the sun at parts. Like it was nice. I really, really enjoyed it. Like it was a really good space. And yeah, so loved it. I don't know. We kind of talked about bears a little bit, but again, yeah, it was nice to see a second bear species, and the space was really nice for them. And you could tell people were inspired and interested. Another animal having a renaissance are sun bears, which I guess is not an Andean bear, but now it's just come back into my head. These animals that are underappreciated are really having their moments this year, which I love. I love. And yeah, overall, of all of the collection of all the animals, wonderful selection. I feel like it's not missing any big hitters that it should have, which was nice. And
Yeah,
like
it's
just
nice to
good.
see a South American section that covers all your main bases. I think the only big ones that would be kind of missing would be some kind of more kind of reptile amphibian things, like if you're talking tropical houses and stuff. But it sounds like they might have covered some of that in the learning
Yes.
centre. Um,
Yes.
so but big question, of the two loops, African or South American, which is better?
Oh. As a person from Scotland, I enjoyed my time in the South American loop more because there were trees to cower under for my poor, delicate, paper thin skin. Um, so I enjoyed that a lot. I don't know. I think like it's a real cop out answer, but I think the quality. This was the thing was like it was small in terms of like compared to Phoenix, where I'd spent hours running around the day before, but it was like all just fantastic. There was no like it didn't. No, none of it felt rushed or that they hadn't thought about it or that this was meant to be here or this because it was designed in these perfect little loops. Like it all felt like it was meant to be, and it was perfectly kind of composed and put together and told stories, and like it was just generally a nice space to be in. So I can't really say if I had to pick a favorite. I think tapirs, anteaters, roseate spoonbills, jaguars, like these are animals that I really love. So like in terms of like my personal biases,
Yeah,
I would maybe say that one. But also equally the unforgettable giraffe experience, the unforgettable elephant bottom, all of these things made the Africa loop kind of stand out and be wonderful. So like it really is a cop out answer, but I would say between the two, it's a photo finish. Like it could go depending on when you ask me. It could go either way. Like
that's
so
fair
good.
enough.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry to be a complete cop out. Um, I guess like we now move on to like our bonus stuff section, which we often do, which is basically just when me and Jodie have stuff that we don't extra stuff that we don't really know where to fit in everywhere else. Things like the shop, which was lovely, really good range of stuff. Clothes, books, cuddly toys, all the classic kind of mugs and cups and stuff, which was really nice. Good size shop. Bigger. I remember. I think we talked in the Phoenix Zoo review about how the shop was weirdly small.
Yes,
This
for a
was
big major
bigger.
zoo, it had a very
Yeah.
tiny shop, didn't it?
Which, but for Reid Park, perfectly sized, much larger, much more stuff, much more offering. Was really good in terms of like shop
Yeah, I got a
experience and
lovely
stuff.
magnet from there. Thank you very much
You're
again.
very welcome. You're very welcome. And then I guess the other stuff that I wanted to mention was well, one of them was opening hours because I thought this was weird. So obviously here in the UK, it's never that hot or never that cold or never that anything interesting in terms of seasons. Like we can go out whenever we want to. We're not going to be burned as soon as we exit our homes in terms from like a hot desert sun. So we can open zoos pretty much whenever. Like they close when there's extreme weather, rain, flooding, snow, whatever. But the set opening hours, like these are we know it's going to be hot, I imagine, opening hours, um, are for Reid Park Zoo, June to September, peak summer months. So when all zoos in the UK open till like 6 p.m. o'clock, like they have evening events, they're open all day, whatever. Um, the opening hours of Reid Park are 8 a.m. So get people in earlier before it gets hot until 2 p.m. and then they close. And then in October to May, they're open 9 a.m. till 4. So it's a really weird
Yeah.
thing for somebody who's not used to it. But I guess like they must want to avoid the sun and burning
Yeah, it
people.
makes a
But
lot of sense when
something,
you think about it, but it's just completely spins our idea of what a zoo's opening hour should be.
yeah, yeah. And so I guess like yeah, something to be aware of if you're traveling specifically to this place to go to this thing. Like be aware of opening hours. And what I like though is like even though the opening hours seem short or strange, because of the size, you can easily get around in that time. Like, it's not like a, oh no, we're gonna have to rush because it's only open till 2. It still works really well. Like, you can still get around everything, have time to stop, have time to do things, have time to like go for like a lunch or like get stuff in the gift shop. Like, it's perfect. It's really, really good. Um, and then yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about because I always like a bit of. I love it when a zoo has a master plan. I just love it. And Reid Park has a really ambitious, cool one. So it's a phase plan where they're kind of phase one are adding another loop. So we had our kind of Africa representation, South American representation, and they're adding what they're calling Pathway to Asia, which is red pandas and otters, Komodo dragons, tigers, siamangs, like all of these amazing like Asian species into a new, distinct, unique, wonderful loop that I believe also has like an event venue. And it's really interesting. If you go onto the website, the plans are there. It looks incredible. It looks really interesting. They're working with Red Panda Network. On their website, they're kind of talking about red panda conservation going on there. They're working with tiger conservation campaigns. And I think it's nice that they're expanding this zoo in a themed way, in a way that's not like we've suddenly got like this thing and we don't really know, it doesn't really fit with the plan, or it doesn't really, it's like they're building a whole new immersive zone all kind of designed to be this kind of way, which I really, really like. um they're then in phase two going to improve the center of the zoo, so they're going to bring in hippos into the Africa zone, which I think is really interesting, and kind of redevelop some of those spaces before in the final phase they're going to do the similar sort of thing with South America, and kind of re-zhuzh some of the area there, just make it a bit more, I don't really know, a bit bigger, a bit more modern, bit whatever, unsure. And in that space, they're going to add sloths and they're going to redo the Andean bears, which has already been done. And I think sloths is opening soon. So like phase three is kind of ahead of the game, but yeah, it's really really interesting, and I love when a zoo has a plan. Like I just love a
Hmm.
plan. I love a plan. Like I feel like somebody who works in a zoo that is currently all plans. Connor, you might have thoughts because Bristol Zoo project is all change. It's all redevelopment. What's your thought on this plan? What do you think?
I love it. I love a plan. I love a zoo document, a blueprint, a planning permission document. I'm a absolute nerd when it comes to it. It's really quite sad, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah, this one looks fantastic. It looks like it's well thought out. It's and they're being very transparent with it as well, which I think is really nice. And that lots of zoos will have their plans, they'll keep them hoarded away, locked up, and say you'll see this when it's
Mhm.
built. But actually, they're being really transparent about what's happening when. And I checked all the updates and stuff, and the updates of when work's actually happening and stuff as well was
Mhm.
brilliant and keeps everyone kind of up to date. But yeah, it seems like they're doing it nice and kind of sensibly. And actually, the pathway to Asia looks like it's going to increase the footprint of the zoo considerably. So that's a
Mhm.
whole loop that they're going to do without disrupting the visitor experience because it's an entirely new parcel of land that they're going to
Yeah.
be getting possession of. So I think very exciting times coming up
Mhm.
for Reid Park.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then it's interesting that you mention that because I often think about that. Like, for example, Chester. Like, I feel like I keep going back to them because like that's where we met, so it's in my head whenever we talk to each other. But like Chester, for example, they're redeveloping a large part of their kind of Africa section, But because of the way the zoo's laid out and the way they're developing it, that section has to be closed to the public while they're developing, which feels like it's weird because I guess it feels like something's being taken away, even though it's being replaced and improved. So it just feels like for a while, like this area of the zoo feels considerably smaller, even though it still would take about 3 days to spend all of the time you want in Chester. It does feel like they've taken a part away. Whereas this, because they have that advantage of, well, we're building this new on a new bit of like completely new space, completely new thing. It doesn't feel to me like, oh well, the visitors are going to be walking through a building site. They're going to be like missing out on something. Like it feels like a whole nice new
Yeah.
thing, and it's like it makes me so sad that like I have no like I was there for a conference. I have no other excuse to go back to Arizona. Like I just don't. So like I feel like I'm never going to see this, and it makes me sad because I'm really like the quality that I've experienced in the rest of the
Mhm.
zoo. If they continue it, I'm like I want to go back, and I don't know how I'm going to justify an excuse to go back there. When like there's so many other places I want to go, but like I'm so excited to see like even just photos of what's going on. It's going to be so interesting. Like yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, so yeah. I guess having talked about the future, we have to now wrap up. I feel like we thought this was going to be shorter than the last time, but as always, when I talk about a zoo and when you talk about a zoo, we talk for far too long and it goes on and on and on beyond all listeners' hopes and dreams. Um, but I hope they enjoyed it. I loved it. I thought it was a great time. But time to wrap up. And as always, we will do our 2 stars and a wish and our word of the ReZOO. So I suppose for me, the two things that stood out as stars um, were, I think, the elephant bum, number one, always love it, love it, love it, love it. And number two, the Baird's tapir. I think like seeing a tapir that I'd never seen before was very special, and I loved it. And I just want to make Connor jealous. And then my wish, if I had to have one, something that could change or improve or be different. Oh, I always hate this bit because I'm always like, I don't know. Um, I feel like there's nothing really that I've critiqued overly throughout this. I don't think there's anything that I've been like, I didn't like this, or I would have moved this, or I would have done that. Um, I guess maybe like the one thing, and it's not really a criticism. Like Expedition Tanzania is amazing, that whole Africa space, and it feels like a huge portion of the zoo. And it's just kind of dedicated to elephants, but there's a lot of pathways and there's a lot of space there. And it would be nice maybe to see the addition of a smaller secondary kind of species alongside the elephants. I don't know what it would be, but they can work that out. But like that, yeah, I feel like that was a really big space, and I think it could be even better, even if it was just a small, like secondary kind of animal to add to that, just to add a little bit of diversity, because it felt like a very large space. So maybe that, but overall, that's like a dream rather than a complaint. Like that's more than just like a, oh, you could add more, but really, I'm already satisfied and I'm already happy with that. I think it was just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant day out, and I loved it. And if I had to sum up the whole experience, um, in one word, it would be. While I think of that, I actually have a question for you, Connor.
Ooh,
What's the one thing you're jealous that we've talked about that you haven't seen?
ooh, the one. It's got to be the tapir. I mean, it's it would be worse if you'd seen mountain tapirs because they are like the
Very rare.
pinnacle of
Hmm.
tapir rarity. But yeah, those tapirs are fantastic, and I love ticking off a new species as well. So to be fair, the gazelles are going to be up there as well because I love an ungulate as well.
Hmm.
I love a small antelope deery, gazelle type thing. All of those, everything in that kind of range, I absolutely love. So yeah, the species are, I think, especially jealous because it would be so hard for me to see those as well. I know that I'm not going to get that experience without gallivanting off to America as well. It's because those, and yeah, things like the spotted neck otter that are kind of like a spin on what we've got here, but
Yeah.
the ones that tend to be more common over in America. So those are probably the big ones that I'm jealous of.
Fair. Fair. Like, and yes, I am jealous of myself that I will not get to go back and see them anytime soon. So know that the feeling is somewhat mutual in a strange way. Um, and yeah, I guess despite the fact that you bought me some time there, I still haven't thought of a word of the ReZOO. And I guess, like, the thing that sticks out in my head is the giraffe feeding. So, like, if I was to say something that, like, to sum it up in maybe a phrase more than a word, um, would be maybe like a place to make like really like it feels like a core memory place to me. Like that's like something that will stick with me forever. So I feel like a core memory place of some kind of word in there. Listeners, draw out your own choices, but something to do with core memories and making memories and just unique, wonderful experiences. Like brilliant. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. Loved it, and I wouldn't change a thing. I had a wonderful, wonderful time, and I'm so grateful to everybody there and to the staff that I met and everybody. It was just a fabulous, fabulous day. And on that note, having spent what feels like a fabulous, fabulous day talking to you, Connor, we should probably wrap up.
Yes.
And so I will wrap up with the classic kind of spiel, which is from my end, I suppose, make sure to follow the podcast, make sure to kind of review us, leave us a nice review if you liked it. We'll have plenty more ReZOOs coming up. You can also follow us on social media everywhere, which is at Pangolin Podcast, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on X. Yep. And TikTok and everywhere else. The podcast is still there. And we are still posting things to keep you informed about conservation and things that we are doing. And so, yes, go and follow us on all of those things. And yes, you can follow me on Instagram at only Jack Baker. No, at the only Jack Baker, and on X at only Jack Baker. And I'm also on Threads and all of these other things that are popping up as well. So go and do that. And yes, Connor, to wrap up, is there anywhere people should go to support you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to go and listen to Planty Planty Zoo, which is our ridiculous zoo / botanic garden based podcast where we talk between me and Steph, my co-host, but also with a range of wonderful guests about what animals they'd like to see in zoos, their conservation backgrounds, and what they'd like to do if they were in a zoo or employed in a zoo as well. You can go and find us on all the socials at Planty Planty Zoo on Instagram, at Planty Planty Zoo on X. Ooh,
It
feel
doesn't sound
natural.
right.
Don't like it.
Nope.
Or you can go to our website at www.plantyplantyzoo.com, and we're available on all of the podcast streaming sites, and you can find all those links at the website as well.
Wonderful. Fantastic. And yes, make sure and listen. It's wonderful. The only thing I don't like about it is the fact that I listen and I'm like, I miss my friends. So I feel like that is a bold, from someone who spends a lot of time ReZooing things, a nice ReZoo to have left you. In that, like, I just feel like it's just a great, fun, silly, charming, wonderful look at wildlife and zoos and botanic gardens. And as someone who has worked in both, it's very interesting to see the different ways that you talk about different things and hear about both things. Because I think sometimes botanic gardens are overshadowed by zoos. And so it's interesting to hear Steph's side of the conversation versus your side. And it's great. It's really, really great. Oh, and the only other bones pick is I think the guests lineup is missing a particular star. And
I'm
despite
sure
the
we
fact
can
one
remedy
star, that star was promised to be a guest, perhaps the first guest, that request was denied. But I'm sure they'll turn up eventually.
Almost certainly.
And on that bitter note, it is probably time to end. So thank you all so much for listening, everybody. Thank you for your constant support, because it is all because of you I got to Arizona. And yes, tune in next time for Connor's final appearance as not ever, he'll probably be back at some point, but final appearance in our Arizona series, where we'll be talking about the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum. So until next time, thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.